Guys, welcome back to the Lake Norman Business Podcast. This week we have a great episode for you. We interviewed Jim Contes of Aviation Metals. Jim is a highly successful entrepreneur, good friend of mine. Had a lot of conversation about what it looks like to take over and grow a business. Jim has put a lot of time and effort into building his team and his company culture, and he's going to share in this episode a lot of kind of practical tips that you can use as you're building your business, building your team to create a powerful culture. So enjoy the episode. All right, guys, welcome back to the Lake Norman Business Podcast. I'm Danny Decker. This is Ryan Weber. Excited to have Jim Contes with us today from Aviation Metals. So, Jim, thanks for being here, man.
Glad to be here.
Tell us a bit about the business. What do you guys do?
We are a metal distributor that supplies aircraft quality metals and materials to the airline and aerospace industry, such as the big manufacturers to the parts component fabricators, down to the MROs, the maintenance facilities that actually do the reparations.
Love
for
it.
Airlines, yeah.
I mean, the name just says it, right? Aviation Metals.
I love like when you talk to a business and it's like, well, what's your business name? It's like Aviation Metals. Well, what do you do? Aviation Metal. Perfect. Love
There's
it.
a huge advantage on Google because of that.
I was just talking to our nanny for our 1-year-old. Her husband does paint and flooring, and he's doing a new business name. And I was talking to him. He's like, I'm trying to come up with a good business name. What do you think? I was like, I just looked on Google and nobody has LKN paint and floor. I'd probably go with that one. He's like, but that's not cool. I was like, but I just typed in LKN paint and floor like everybody else will, and you're going to be number one. He's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, you win.
We do see a lot of that. How'd you find us? Oh, you came up first because we were searching Aviation Metals.
Yeah.
So we get
That's
a lot
great.
of direct
So
hits.
how did you get into it, man? Because it's such a niche industry. How did you get into this?
I've been doing this for 25 years. It was a family business. My granddad started the business back in 76. Primarily hardware, nuts and bolts, things of that nature, and it kind of more expanded into other things, into sheet and plate and tubing, other things. And we finally found our niche. Probably in the early 80s, we moved to Charlotte and kind of found our full product line, which is, the sheet, plate, tubing, and bar, extruded shapes, castings, things of that nature, all while adding services. And I started right after college, kind of, I guess right after college time, and pretty much just in sales, just learning the business. Started out actually in the warehouse, kind of learned kind of the function of the business, the processes, and stepped back into sales a little bit, and then got moved into the administrative side, let's say, and then walked into accounting a little bit here and there.
Done it all.
So I've kind of done it all.
You kind of learned
I've learned a little bit about the business early on, which was a huge benefit later when I bought the business and took over the business.
And when was that?
2017.
Okay, cool.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
You were buying that one when Danny and I were selling ours, so you were jumping into it. We were like, see ya.
So what did the pandemic do to you guys?
Oh, well, it caused us a lot of anxiety, number one. But overall, looking back, it didn't. We pivoted. We quoted other things that necessarily weren't metal specific. So when a lot of these airplanes were parked in the desert because they weren't flying them, we supplied a lot of these airlines plastic mylar sheeting, for example, that went over the skins in order to protect it from the sand in the desert. So there were some other little different areas. Were we affected? Of course. But we felt blessed and we were very fortunate that everybody still had a job. We were still coming in. We were still able to meet our customers' concerns and be us in a sense, with some pivoting, of course, in mind. Obviously, we had to split schedules and address COVID issues when somebody comes down with COVID. So it was challenging, but we pulled through it. For us, I think during COVID, it was extremely difficult because we, at the time, implemented new software, which was just a major project and very cumbersome that, frankly, I underestimated. But we struggle as a team. We at the time we've implemented different management systems in with using EOS, which is really just kind of gelled our business to the point where it feels like a business.
We have a ton of people that are, they're small business owners and they don't really understand, maybe they're kind of getting a team and they've never had to, I like how you said, made it feel like a business. It doesn't feel like a business. So how did EOS do that?
I'm a salesperson. I've always hustled sales, waited tables, I've tried security alarms, you name it, the Amways of the world. I've done all that. So I have always the sales minded aspect, and I've always discounted other things such as process and those variables that in culture, even to some extent. I figured you work here, just work, to some extent. But I really am putting a lot more importance on these days. I'm appreciating the process and the culture aspect of what the people mean, and who we are as a team. From day one, since taking over, I've always tried to convey team, and now we feel like a team and we're acting like a team. And I mean, when I say team, I mean like a sports team. Like we all can't win the game unless we're all doing the things we need to do on the field, kind of thing, and we have that kind of same mindset in the office.
That's awesome, man. So what does that transition look like? And I ask this because like Ryan said, I think a lot of business owners out there who are, maybe it's just a one-man shop. They do the sales, right? A lot of small business owners are sales-oriented. They start to grow that team over time. What does that transition look like to actually start becoming a real team? Does it just happen overnight, or like how does that go down?
Well, I mean, being a leader, people need to believe in you. And, I think it just took some normal time for people to start not just listening to the words that you're conveying and you're saying, but just to kind of start putting that adding that along with what you're doing. And finally it clicks that you're not that person. You're not that just the sales guy, as I would say, trying to convince somebody else, or in this case, employees, of whatever it is, versus actually doing it and showing them that we are the team and we are all in this together, and you are important in your role, in your department. And that's what we were able to kind of achieve at this point, where everybody kind of understands their importance on the team, so that we're in this, we're all in this game together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you guys are hiring, are you thinking about cultural fit and stuff like that at this point?
For sure, 100%. Going through this EOS process, it's given some valuable tools. Obviously, when we're able to develop who we are as Aviation Metals, we have a core focus, and we know who we are, and we hire based on what those are. We've actually had to fire for that reason. Interestingly enough, literally after our first annual meeting, going over our vision and our goals and our core focus, we had to terminate employment because of that hours later, which was hard to do, but it also made a point.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's, like we've said before, right person, right seat, right bus, right? And there's not necessarily anything wrong with the person. They're just going in a different direction than you're going.
Well, interesting.
That's fine.
Yeah. Interestingly, we've always taken the approach where we'll hire somebody assuming they can fit. We'll mold you. You can maybe do the job. And then you realize they don't. And you realize you're pulling them towards the water trough. And I've done that personally. I've made that mistake. And you realize, until you realize who you are, and hiring on those principles or those ideas, you're always, in my opinion, as a business owner, you're always going to be challenged with finding that person, because you're just going to rotate them in and out until, because they never fit. You're not finding that right fit.
Yeah. I always think it's so much easier to hire somebody that you like, that's going to mesh, and you can teach them how to be a good, productive employee, because you already have the systems and processes and know how it needs to get done. I don't need the best, whatever it is. I need someone that's just going to mesh well with the rest of the team. And it's way easier to hire for that.
Well, one person can really do some damage culture-wise.
Yeah.
We've had issues in the past where, one person just really spoils the vibe. paints leadership as something they're not, just really can cause a lot of damage. And we've had a lot of turnover in this department because of that.
Yeah. The first agency that I built, this is back in like 2016, 2017, had that exact same scenario where we were a small team. There were like seven full-timers or so. And one of them just had a really bad attitude. And, we saw the warning signs and should have done something about it right then. Instead, we waited 6 months too long, and by then it had spread, and it was really bad. And it's like you don't wanna do it. You never want to let somebody go, but that just resonates with me. The idea that kind of one bad attitude can really become toxic.
Very much. And the other thing too, I'll add is, I think being very direct and open and honest on the hiring side, as much as on just the normal day-to-day working aspect. I try to be very direct. I believe it's good for both the employer and the employee upon hiring. When that employee, for example, knows my expectations, because if you have different expectations, obviously it's no benefit for either one of us or the goals that the company has in mind. So it's just a waste of time. So I'm a big believer on being direct and honest, way up front, because I just think it establishes the honesty of how we move forward.
Yeah. You mentioned some tools. Do you guys use like personality assessments? Do you guys use any specific tools that business owners out there could use for themselves too?
Not specifically just yet. We're still in the process of molding our
so is it more like kind of
our hiring processes and our other little smaller processes?
So how are you filling it out then? Is it more just like the interview? You're just trying to kind of just get a sense for, how does this, like, what's this person's personality? Like, how do you judge whether someone's going to fit with your team or not?
Honestly, I would like to answer that question, but I'm not handling the hiring necessarily per se.
Well, hey, that's a good thing.
And I just honestly, I don't have that answer.
Love it, man. Well, you got a team that's taking care of it.
Remember, I told you I'm very honest and direct.
I love it.
What made you choose EOS as your managerial thing to go? I mean, there's so many ways.
Well, I'm a part of EO Entrepreneurs Organization. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me personally, business, family wise. I've gotten nothing but greatness out of it. Even the small things have given me such huge rewards, some of which I don't know until later. And EOS was one of those things that, I picked up just through some learning events and talking to people that have done it themselves. And, we went for it. As a company that we're trying to go from a small mom and pop type of business, and we want to scale and grow into a larger business, offer different product lines and more services. We realized we need to have some sort of system to manage ourselves and our communications and things like that. And we found that it's just been a beautiful experience after 1 year of going through the process going through the EOS process. It's really starting to show some traction, and we're all breathing easier. It's not just me, but I think every employee, especially on the leadership team at this point, we're still trying to roll it out with the other employees on their own individual meetings and whatnot. But we've really found that everybody's smiling these days. I mean, I can't say how everybody's positive. It just, the 1 year hit, and it's like everybody's just happy.
Best feeling in business.
You see benefit out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to think meetings were like, oh my God, we got to have an hour meeting a week. Like, everybody, that's downtime.
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to sell, and how are we going to do with accounting and work? And I'm realizing what a fool I was, because obviously you have to invest in those, like, as I mentioned before. And that's why even my idea of the team aspect has grown over the past few years since I've had the business.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it's just been beautiful.
So as the team grows, kind of what does your role look like on a day-to-day? Like, as the CEO or president, like, how are you spending your days? Is it all vision stuff, or are you still getting your hands dirty? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, I work with my wife, Christina. She's the integrator, the visionary. We've had some disagreements in regards to who's handling those roles because we kind of share different ideas. She's my yin and yang. We yin and yang each other. But yeah, she's as the integrator and I'm more as the visionary. We're trying to respect those roles. I've been trying to step out more because as a guy who's kind of handled all the multifacets of the business, even prior to owning the business, I was always the go-to guy on the day-to-day. And I found myself that the business can't be successful relying on only one person, hence the team, right? So it's taken a lot of learning for me to kind of pull away in order for others to grow. So currently at the moment, as a visionary, I have my duties, I'm coming in, that sort of thing, but I'm trying to step out of the day-to-day and really put more of my emphasis on growing the business and the other more strategic parts of the business in order to grow ahead, cybersecurity and things like that.
Yeah. Is that a scary process, the kind of stepping out of the day-to-day? Because isn't there a part of you that's like, I'm handing my baby off to somebody else?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess the word trust comes to mind. And it's not that I'm not trustworthy because that came up in our leadership meetings. It's more of trusting that things get done right. It's not trusting you as the person. It's just, hey, is it going to get done in the right manner? But it's been a lot easier since we've procured new software to help automate things and make things less manual, but also adding processes is allowed me to step away and feel good doing so, without feeling like something's going to screw up because it's, like I said, it's more automated.
Yeah. What are some of your goals? Like as a little over a year into EOS now, you're able to step back a little bit. Like, do you have some goals that like you're really trying to shoot for? Because, a lot of businesses, like they don't know what to do.
Yes, no. And it's not the numbers. You'd be surprised because I think everybody thinks we want to grow. Well, not really. I want to grow as a business because when I took over the business, culture was an absolute piss poor condition, pardon me, but it was just the gossip and the expectations and the change and our people problem we had an issue with. My goal as a business, number one, was to fix that. Like I said, kind of alluded to before, I feel like we've gotten there. Everybody's in the right seats, everybody knows what we're doing, and we're all together.
Yeah.
My goal over the business is to grow in a way where we grow as a team. I want everybody to love their job. I want to have the best place to work. I want that title. But more specifically, with respects to the business, I want to see the business grow. I want to build the business and meet the goal of building it more than it is at the time. And that means the people and even the process, as much as I hate it, and going through the computer system, new software and new equipment. It's a challenge, and I like the idea of kind of beating that challenge. And that's why I feel even better today. Yeah, getting over the software COVID issues, but just the idea that we got through it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, love it. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. So I feel like this is super relevant question for a lot of small business owners out there. You and your wife have built this thing together, and you just mentioned, you're the two of you are at the top of the totem pole as far as visionary integrator, and that's got to be so hard. Like in a lot of ways, I mean, marriage, work, all of that being combined. Any just tips out there for small businesses who maybe it's a husband and wife thing? Like how do you do that without wanting to tear each other's hair out?
Well, in all honesty, because I'm honest and direct with you, it is a challenge, professionally and personally, because we're together all the time on the personal side, that kind of thing, and on the business side when we have different opinions. One thing I think, and we have yet to perfect it, is our own L10. For those that don't know L10, it's part of EOS, the weekly meetings in which leadership team gets together, but we don't have our own board meeting together.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of failing on that, but that right there is something that we're really going to be working on much better. not only to address the business things, but even the personal things and the things that we need to work on with each other.
Yeah, I've been working with my wife for many years, and so I get it. It's really hard to like turn off like when you leave the business and then go home. It's like, well, I still have some ideas I want to talk to you about.
Well, you know what the biggest litmus test is my daughter, my little one.
Mine doesn't
She
talk
said-
yet, so
no,
that's
she-
it.
Yeah. Well, she always corrects us like, "Hey, you guys are talking about work. Cut it off."
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
good.
Yeah,
She's a good.
yeah. I'm assuming
Little
once the little one starts talking, that'll change quite a bit.
So we feel a little, we have to kind of correct ourselves.
Yeah.
And control that a little bit and try to keep it at work or away from her.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, Jim, again, our audience, small business owners, just share something you've learned over the last, 20 years of building this thing. What would you kind of leave as a parting word of advice for small business owners today?
Be patient. Believe in your people. Work with them and work with the ones that want it. Hire quickly. I'm just throwing out random things that are coming to my head.
But they're all really good pieces of business.
I feel like the fire quickly part comes up. I've wasted so much time trying to get people pulling them to the water trough. And you realize I'm doing more work trying to get you there than you're giving me that you should. So, and believe in your people. I feel good with the idea where I'm at now, knowing that things are in place, and go for. Don't think that you always have to run a business like you're doing it. It's okay to step out and try new things.
Yeah, when you're the owner, there's not a rule book. You're making the rule book.
Well, I mean, another quick example is I mentioned cybersecurity. It's coming up and a major concern for a lot of companies, and especially ours. And it's just like ISO was back in the day. Our business didn't have to have an ISO qualification or certification back in the day. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be selling today. And so I think you have to adapt. I know that's very cliche and everybody says it, but I think if you always sit back and do the same thing, you're blinding yourself towards potential opportunities, or in some case, saving yourself from the inevitable because you're going to the dark side, the wrong direction.
That's great, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.